Christian parenting.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Pardon the Mess. I'm your host, Courtney DeFeo, and I'm so excited. I love that I paused like I couldn't remember my name. Welcome to Pardon the Mess. I'm your host, Courtney DeFeo. That is my name, and I'm super excited about our guest today. It is my lead pastor, Drew Sherman, at my church Compass in Colleyville, and his wife, Michelle Sherman. But before we get to that, I need to tell you a little story. So, you know, us women, we can gain weight, lose weight, and I don't like a tight ring. So my wedding ring has been tight, and I just don't want to wear it because it makes me feel like I'm just going to toss it across the room. And so I put it in our safe, and I haven't worn it in some time. And Ron's like, people are going to think we're divorced. Or why are you not wearing a wedding ring? I'm like, Ron, nobody is picking me up at 48 years old at Target and the produce aisle. I mean, it's just not happening. And so he's like, haha, funny, get a ring on. So we were at Macy's the other day. I think it's going out of business in Southlake, which, by the way, great sales going on over there. And I noticed this like 1 bazillion carat diamond just sparkling across the way for like $20. So if you pass me in town and you're like, whoa, lady, nice ring. Thank you. It is fake. And I'm loving it right now. But also because I tried it on with the box, like it was like, you know, stuck in the box. I was like, oh, this one fits good. Well, now it's too big. So I've got like the old school tape on there. I'm just a mess. Pardon the Mess is the name of the podcast. So I like to be the brand, if you will. So today's episode is so fun. I've got my actual friends, Drew and Michelle Sherman. They are my pastors, but they are dear friends of ours. And you're just going to love this episode. So in the beginning of the year, Drew kicked off a series called Declare, and he'll talk about why in our church. And this episode was about consistency. And I just kept thinking about it. It was one of the best sermons I've heard him do. And he said something like, if we don't get this right, the rest of it will be really hard this year. And so I didn't want to hear it, but I needed to hear it because I'm a very inconsistent person, but he talks about specifically our faith walk and the disciplines around reading our Bible, or even making our homes a model of faith, and how can we be consistent in the little things that we do. And so it's very practical. He gives us 4 steps how we can just stay consistent in our faith walk. And it really does apply to other things. Like if you're trying to lose weight or make traction on a reading goal, like this consistency message will help you all around. But we are a podcast all about raising kids to know, love, and follow Jesus. And so I think you're going to get a lot out of this. I think you're going to love getting to know our pastors. And if you don't have a home church, we would love for you to come to Compass, multiple campuses all around the DFW area, but there's also an online campus. So if you're in a place where you haven't been able to find a local church and you just need a good message from down-to-earth pastors that love Jesus with all of their heart, I would love for you to come to Compass. So here we go with my friends, Drew and Michelle Sherman.
I'm so excited. I've got my lead pastor and his wife, Michelle and Drew. How are you today? We're good.
Hey, Courtney, how are you?
Well, I'm good. I live about 5 minutes from your house, but y'all are in California today. So nice to see you West Coast people.
We are. And it's a little warmer in California than it is in Texas today.
That's right. We're expecting some snow this week in Texas. And it's like the world, we're like, get the bread, water, run. We freak out.
The grocery stores probably have nothing left in them.
I know.
Yeah, it's end times in Texas right now.
Exactly. My girls will be like, well, we can DoorDash. I'm like, maybe not. We'll see. Okay, set you up in the intro, but I just want to say, well, I have you two. This is a long time coming. You guys are actual mentors and leaders in my own life and our family's life, and we love our church. And so I just want to say, if anyone does not have a church, if you're in Texas, you better come to Compass. But also if you're online, we have a huge online campus. And Drew, like we went to several churches in Dallas. There's one on every corner, and they're good churches. And so the fact we tried a bunch, we landed with y'all, and like week 1 or 2, I was like, this is it. Like you're just a guy in some jeans, being authentic, that passionately loves Jesus. And Michelle, you're such a perfect support for him. Like we just think the world of you. So thanks for what you do. And Drew, why don't you start saying just who y'all are, how long you've been preaching, and about your family, and then we'll get into the talk.
Well, thank you. First of all, Courtney, thank you for loving our church, and we love you, and we feel thrilled that you're a part of Compass, you and Ron and the family. It's just awesome. And yeah, we're just as surprised as anybody what God has done at Compass. It's been amazing. It's such a blessing. And I still pinch myself that I get to be a part of this church. We just started our 23rd. Actually, we're halfway through our 3rd year here.
Wow.
So we had a 10-year ministry in Los Angeles, which we loved. And We've been in Indiana, but this is our
home.
This is our life church. This is our home church. And like you, there's just a real sweet spot at Compass right now. It's a place where it's large enough to have opportunities for everyone, but small enough to feel like there's some intimacy and relationship and community life. So it's a blessing. But yeah, thank you.
Love it.
It's an honor to be here.
How many did you have? Just to give folks a size, I was only going to say this because it feels so much like family. Like we've been here 10 years, and probably most of our 10 years we've been at Compass. And I'm amazed. What was it, like 14, 15,000 attend, or how many attend on all of our campuses?
Well, we had on special, Christmas Eve, we had about 15 in person, but normally we're running about 7,000 to 8,000 in person,
Awesome.
on a really good day. And then, with online, whatever it is.
The audience is pretty big.
It's big.
Yeah, I love it.
Quantify that. Really.
And that's several campuses. What I've noticed and what I tell people, I get to work in guest gathering with you each week, which is new people walk up and I tell them, I'm like, give it just a little bit of time and you will start recognizing people. It's like, oh, there's my friend. And even though it's big, it feels so small. And the fact that I can even text you or call you, which by the way, we have to tell one of our stories, Ross. Okay, so we were first acquainted. I got pulled in early on to host or something like that, and quickly y'all became friends of ours. It's yes, you're my pastor, but we've had dinner and our families know each other, but we weren't that close yet. And so I think we were trying to talk about getting together for a meeting or something, and I was texting you, and I said, "You're like, what works for you?" And what I thought my fingers typed was first week of December. Guys, what came out on that text was first week of sexy. Drew, can you get together first week of sexy? Tell me what happened.
I just didn't know what it meant. I asked him.
Asking you,
is this
he's showing me
is this a girl thing? First week of sexy? Is this an event that I'm not aware of? But I assume that it was a texting faux pas. So I gave you a pass on that.
Drew, I was dying. I don't get embarrassed, but my face turned red. I was sweating. I immediately texted Michelle and you. And I don't think I've ever texted you again, just you. It's Michelle's on this every time. Oh my gosh, he's going to get outed. And it was so funny. But then I think I FaceTimed y'all and y'all were crying, laughing. And I'm like, this is amazing.
We certainly had a laugh at your expense.
Yes, we did.
Could have been much worse, right? I mean, who knows?
It was fine. It was
fine. Okay. So anyway, y'all are our friends. It feels like family. So this week, actually the week we're recording, you kicked off a new series called Declare. Why did y'all name it that? And what is your desire for folks? They'll be listening to this a couple weeks in, but they could go back and listen to the whole series. But why Declare? Why do you think that's an important word?
I think that I like the word declare better than I like the word resolution.
Mm-hmm.
We use that word New Year's resolutions, that phrase pretty loosely, right? Mostly it's in fun. Oh, I'm going to try to lose weight this year. Oh, I'm going to try to work out or whatever it is. But usually, I think even I don't know if you've seen those commercials on Apple where they talk about Quitter's Friday.
Yeah.
The average person puts their New Year's resolution the second Friday.
So really?
Of January, which would be this is airing later on, but it would be January 14th this year.
That's right.
The average person, their New Year's resolution lasts about 2 weeks. What I thought would be good, and I got this idea from my friend Ashley Woolridge out in a great church out in Peoria, Arizona, where just the idea of declaring out loud, and is there something about verbally declaring, hey, this is what I'm passionate about. This is what I want to do in 2025. I'm just going to, not only am I going to be resolute, I'm going to declare it. And I just thought it would be good. So each of these messages that we're going to do, Courtney, I'm going to ask everybody to stand. And if they're willing to declare it, I just think that to me, it just feels more like a promise to God. And I just think when we make those out loud, it means something,
So this first one, that declaration was about consistency, and you just did it. So I love your humor. You're always self-deprecating, which is so awesome, because the other day I grabbed something out of the trash. I was like, well, Drew's grabbed a cookie out of the trash one time, so I could grab it.
Oh, that's a famous story.
Yeah.
Oh, Michelle, but tell me why you think consistency is key to change and transformation. Why do we need to start here before we get into the weeds of I'm going to run 20 miles, I'm going to read my Bible this way? Why do you think this idea of consistency is important to start with?
Well, I think one thing that's really, really important is what we know is that transformation happens when I do consistently what others only do occasionally.
That's right.
And so we have to just continue to be consistent. And that's how habits get developed. We're not going to be perfect at it, but we need to be consistent because that's when true transformation is going to take place.
Well, Michelle, do you struggle with this? My hunch is that Drew struggles more than you on consistency, but is it both of you?
I would say I'm probably more consistent.
No question.
I'm the reverse. I got you, Drew. I'm the reverse. Ron's Michelle.
Yeah, no, I'm fairly consistent.
No question. And that's why I need to talk about it, right? But I would say, to be even more simpler than that, consistency is a predecessor of growth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's the catalyst. It's the precursor. Because if we're going to grow spiritually, and again, we have all these resolutions, I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to go to the gym. Those are all great. They're great. But I just thought it would be good for us to start the year as a church to say, hey, what if we got consistent with our spiritual disciplines? It would change our whole life if we did it.
Yeah, it really will.
We can read the Bible for 2 weeks and we might not see any change. But if we did it for a whole year, it would definitely change our life.
Yeah.
Able to develop that habit. And so...
Well, I think one of the resolute declarations I've made to myself is I am not a consistent person. I always fail stuff. Like I'll just give myself the out to say like, I'll never get better at this. And I felt when I walked away from church on Sunday, because of the points we're going to talk about, like plan for failure and start small. It's like, okay, just because I don't do it right every year or perfectly doesn't mean I can't grow and still try. Like just because this is a challenge for me doesn't mean I just throw my hands up and be like, well, I'm not consistent. So that's Ron's game. And so it really left me feeling encouraged and not guilted or convicted in a way that I was like, another thing I'm terrible at. So do y'all want to go through the 4? Can we do that today?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. First, so we're going to do 4 ways to grow consistently in our spiritual lives. And I think this applies to all areas of life, but I would love us to focus this conversation just our own spiritual lives, but then talk about our family's growth. So we're the models of faith. So we'll kind of weave all those things in together, but it starts with us as parents and we set the tone for our family. So first one, Drew, you ready? Start small. Talk to us.
Yeah. Can I say one thing before
you may.
we do that?
Approved.
I'm going to frame it. I'm going to give a biblical framework for this.
Okay, that works. I'll go with that.
This is going to help you too, and it's going to help the listeners, our audience, our listening audience. In Romans 7, this is powerful. Paul talks about this. Here's the spiritual giant, the Apostle Paul. He wrote a third of the New Testament. He's somebody we look at as this spiritual icon. But he says in Romans 7, verse 15, I don't understand myself. For what I want to do what's right, but I don't do it. I want to do what's right, but I can't. I want to do what's good, but I don't. I don't do what's wrong, but I do it anyway. So what he is saying is that I'm human, therefore I struggle with consistency. And I just think that is such a huge thing for all of us to hear, because like you said, we tend to I blew it, I'm just going to quit. The truth is, everybody struggles with it. And so to set up so based on that, we came up with 4 ways to grow in our consistency. And of course, we're aiming towards spiritual consistency, our relationship with God. And first one is start small. Small things done consistently trump big things done occasionally in our life.
Walk that out. So I think, why do we and we're big about trips, but it was like, as parents, why do we think the one big thing moves the needle? Because it's flashier. Like we discount. I was thinking this morning, Ron drove the girls to school almost every morning of their childhood. And I've done a lot of big things with them, but his consistency of just making their drive time a priority for him, they will look back. I mean, their music taste is unbelievable because a rock and roll guy drove them to school. So things like that. Why do you think we discount that small is making a difference?
Well, it's a little easier, right?
Yeah.
Like the hardest work is every day trying to be consistent in areas that matter. And it's just easier to think, that one big epic trip, that big special night, that daddy-daughter date, which all are good things, right? And they're all memorable.
And they will remember them.
They will remember.
But it doesn't have the same lasting effect.
It's the small acts of consistency that will change them. It's amazing too what marks a kid, and both good and bad, right?
Right.
We remember where we were when somebody says something hurtful to us.
Right.
And we don't let go of it.
Right.
Right. Likewise, we remember when someone lights our world up, we remember that too. We remember that more than, going on Space Mountain, although that's fun too, right? Right.
Yeah.
Right?
Not for me.
Yeah.
No. I was very dizzy.
And I just think that, when I think back on my parents, which I think most people think, oh, I'm a pastor. My parents were probably pastors and spiritual giants. Neither one of them went to church as a kid. And so they both came to Christ as adults. And I think actually to their advantage. I mean, I think they were really serious about the Lord whenever they were having kids. And so, yeah, we grew up in a very Christ-following, Christ-centered household because of that. But what I remember, again, I don't remember the vacations and the trips. I remember how consistent they were. My mom taught a thing called We Worship at our church for 37 straight years.
I played
Incredible.
for like 5 years. I would go in there and I'd play the piano all the
No, you did not. That's
her first dating. Yeah. My dad taught a fourth grade boys Sunday school class for 28 years. I mean,
unbelievable.
And so I just learned a lot about consistency from them in that regard.
I love it. Michelle, what's something, well, you can answer what was on your heart, but I also want you to share just a couple things. You've got grandkids that are young. You've also got grown kids that are new parents. What would you say to the mom that's like, okay, start small? Like, I feel so tired. Do I start by praying every morning? Do I start reading my Bible? Like, where would you tell them to start?
Well, I mean, I think prayer is always the first thing to go to. I mean, that's something you can do while you're changing a diaper. That's something you can do while you're picking up toys or picking up kids from school, all those kinds of things. I think going consistently to God there's never going to be a bad return for that.
That's right.
And so, I read something recently that said, you will spend the majority of your life knowing your children as adults.
Wow.
Think about that as adults, but for a brief moment, you'll have the chance to know them as kids. So,
and then we all cry. That's so great.
But I'm just saying, when I read that, I was like, oh, I'd never thought about that.
Yeah.
So starting small with your kids and time, they're told the days are long, the time is short, all the things that people say. It's true. Now that I have adult kids and I even look at my grandkids and I'm like, oh my gosh, how can he already be 5 and go into kindergarten or those kinds of things? But I want to make sure that then what I have given to them has been a model of good things, of consistency, of those kinds of things, because that's what's important. They're going to remember that as then it continues from there.
We get so reactive with our kids, Courtney. Like, for instance, we want the big splash. We want trip to Disney World or to Italy and all that. And we see the smiles it puts on their face and we get excited. But what happens so often is we forget the impact of little things. Like I remember when the kids were little and Michelle and I would like kiss their mom in front of them. Just get, I'd be all like silly about it. And they were like, get a room. And, you guys, stop that. That's gross. But as they're saying it's gross, what are they doing? They're remembering. Ear to ear, because mom loves dad and dad loves mom. And we forget that kind of thing. If you were to pray over your kid when they're 12 years old, they may go, whatever, but they won't forget it.
That's right. And I love that you mentioned so many things. I'm like, I'm going to link it to y'all guys because it's just so good. You're going to have to go back and listen to the whole sermon. But I think you also brought up the point that like these daily small habits, they don't seem that glamorous in the moment, but you compound them and look back and go, no, was that Sunday that exciting for our family? We actually got something out, but you look back and they remember we were in church most Sundays. We are delinquent sometimes, but most Sundays it was a priority for our family and it was something we enjoyed together and we got something from it. So that compounding effect, I think, is huge for them too. All right, let's go to number 2. Or you want to go back?
There's the little Bible verse tucked away in the Old Testament, Zechariah 4:10. Says, do not despise the small things, for the Lord rejoices to see the work begin. That's just a little tiny verse that's so powerful.
I love it. Thank you, Drew. Always keep inserting Jesus in the Bible. Please interrupt me every time I'm like moving on. You're like, hold on, we've got to see what God says. I love that so much because I think the moms listening, we can discount or get in comparison on social media. We can think those things aren't glamorous enough or not. They don't matter enough. And I just love this reminder.
Do you have a child who struggles with a specific subject, or do you have a child who's ahead and not getting challenged enough in the classroom? For either of those kids and anyone in between, you should go check out IXL Learning. IXL Learning is an online learning program that enriches your homeschool curriculum and your child's classroom learning. It offers practice in math, English, language arts, science, and social studies while adapting to each child, meeting them exactly where they are. Plus, iExcel encourages students to be curious and empowers them to choose how to learn. And the best part is, iExcel is so easy for parents. One site gets you all you need, and iExcel customizes learning for each child and their needs. Everything on iExcel is organized by grade, subject, topic, and subtopic, making it simple to find activities for the exact skills you are covering. And iExcel offers instant feedback and explanations of new topics as kids use the program. So you can feel confident that your kids will gain an understanding of the skills they are learning. Make an impact on your child's learning by getting iExcel now. And Pardon the Mess listeners can get an exclusive 20% off iExcel membership when they sign up today at iexcel.com/today. Visit iexcel.com/today to get the most effective learning program out there at the best price.
Taxes was feeling so stuck. Sitting in traffic, squeezing into a parking spot, all to squeeze in getting tax help during your lunch break. Now Taxes is a TurboTax expert who does your taxes for you, while you go about your day getting real-time notifications about their progress and the most money back guaranteed. Now this is Taxes. Intuit TurboTax. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live Full Service, real-time updates only in iOS mobile apps. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees.
Okay, so number one, we're going to grow in our consistency in our spiritual life. The first way is start small. The second one is don't give up. Talk to us about giving up.
Well, we expect change to happen at a rapid pace.
Mm-hmm.
And it usually is just little, small, incremental things.
Right.
We want to lose 20 pounds in a week.
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Not going to happen.
All of
By
us.
Carly's wedding. Thank you.
Exactly.
Yes. Let's lose 25 pounds. We might be able to lose a half a pound, over 20 weeks or 40 weeks, and it will change our
I'm
life.
going to lose more than a half a pound in 20 weeks. You mean a day?
A
a
week.
week.
I'm sorry, half a pound a week.
Maybe. TBD.
I don't know. We'll see.
Well, and it's like anything else. We can read our Bible for, every day for 2 weeks and it didn't really change me. But if you did it for a year, it would change you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just it's really easy to give up. It's easy to get discouraged. And I was just simply saying a change will come. We just have to be patient.
Right. Yeah. So, Michelle, so say we start our Bible plan, perhaps the Bible recap. We're all three on the same day right now.
Right.
And we get off. Like, say we go somewhere, we're behind a few days. My tendency is to get frustrated with myself and be like, well, see, I'm never going to be able to read through the Bible. So what do you do in that moment? Do you just give yourself grace and then skip back on it? I think, is that what you're saying? Literally just don't stop reading your Bible. Yeah.
You have to. I have been doing a reading plan with a friend of mine for the last probably 12 years.
Yeah.
And we do the same plan, and we send each other a verse.
Love
this stood out to me today.
Love it.
That sort of accountability also helps me.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, if I don't do this, then she's going to send a verse, and then I'm going to feel like I was a slacker, which I am, and let's be honest. But I think you just can't, you just got to start again. I mean, am I getting something? If I've made it 2 weeks in a row, reading my Bible, and then I miss a day, do those 2 weeks not make any difference? They don't matter. I mean,
right.
Well, that's not true.
Yeah.
They did matter because I was in God's word 2 weeks in a row.
That's right.
Then, okay, so you miss a day or two, get back on it. And so I'm a little bit competitive and a little bit, what's hard for me is when I see on there, you've missed 5 days.
I know. It's like failure.
Again, I have to remember that I got to that point, and so I didn't fail.
Well, and Drew, that's why I love you. And sorry, I keep interrupting you. What I love about you is that you were honest. You would say as your pastor, does anybody think I read through the Bible in a year? You've spent more time in your Bible than the entire congregation combined. So I know you've studied your Bible, but I thought it was so authentic of you to say, I haven't made it through chronologically in a year. And that gives us permission to be if our own lead pastor says this is hard, then it's hard.
Yeah, I just told them, you're going to miss a day. Just try not to miss 2. If you miss 2, then don't miss 3. I mean, I've never made it through. I've never have. I think my record was 97 days. I think I made it 140 straight days with Wordle. So that tells you how, I mean, that's where we're at right now. But I mean, this is the woman that gets up 4 days a week and she's up by 4:30 or 5 o'clock and works out and then comes home and does her quiet time. She's pathetic, right?
I'm so proud of you. We need you. We
Well,
need you, Michelle.
that's all.
If we
Courtney,
didn't have you and Ron, we would be homeless, is what Drew and
we
I are
would be.
saying.
Yeah, we would be. No one would ever get anything done. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. All right. So start small. Don't give up. Third thing, plan for failure. And that's similar to what we just talked about. But how do you plan for failure? What does that mean?
Well, if your aim is perfection, when you mess up, you'll give up. Like if you're just, okay, I guess I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Well, that's not true. You're so much better off than before. You didn't fail. I think I said in the message, planning to fail doesn't mean you expect to fail. It means you know what to do to get back on track. Because life is busy and life is hard. And especially as a parent, I mean, we're empty nesters now, right? So life is a little less hectic than it was when we had kids in the house. But we have 7 grandkids.
Right. Yes.
We have adult children. And we've been thinking lately, we need to write a book about how to parent adult children.
Yes, please.
I thought it was going to be super easy, and it has not been super easy.
It's not.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like no one never talks about it.
All right. Well, write it.
That's another story for another day.
Yeah. Write it. I'll buy it. Hey, Michelle, looking back in your own kids, and we know, and this is a different answer for y'all because you're pastors, but I think for all of us, we go they are going to make their own decisions, but at some point they're living in our house. And so we can model and guide them through faith decisions or going to church every Sunday. So there are small habits that you look back and be like, we didn't do it all. They didn't go to every camp or they didn't memorize the Bible cover to cover, but we were in church and we prayed with them. Is there a couple that come to mind as a family that you prioritized?
Well, definitely, you're right. I mean, because we're pastors, going to church is going to be one of the top things there. And, we always made sure we did that.
Mm-hmm.
And again, there were times we're not perfect at it. There were times I really don't want to go. And I'd be like, okay, I'll let you off one time. And that's probably not the best decision, but I also was able to understand that maybe they just needed a
break. Yeah.
There was something else going on. So I would say definitely that. I would hope that my kids would now if I asked them, I hope that they would look back and go, Mom always read her Bible.
Yeah.
That modeled for them, or we know that Mom always prayed for us.
Yeah.
And, that was a routine every night before they would go to bed. And it didn't matter if they were tiny or when they were the day before they went to college.
Yeah.
Was in their room at night before they went to sleep. And I would just sit in there and we would talk. And we would pray and all those kinds of things. So I just think those everyday things that really aren't that hard. I mean, again, we can get off track. But if you think about it in the whole scheme of things, those are pretty easy things to accomplish.
Yeah.
So we also made sure there was room for failure.
Oh, for sure.
In our home. We wanted them to understand that they were going to make mistakes and that they weren't expected to be perfect preachers' kids. That there was margin there. There was room for grace in our home. And also, I think just on the lighter side, I always tried to make church fun for them. And then the good side of church. And, we did things we probably shouldn't have done inside the, I remember one time, let me clarify in case you're wondering what I mean. I remember one time I played wiffle ball with Luke and Landon in our auditorium.
I love it.
And the balcony was a home run. And I mean, it was a blast, but I just tried to make it fun for them and made them realize that we're going to make mistakes from time to time. The other thing too, I think parents, this is maybe a different topic, Courtney, but parents, I think sometimes they don't say they're sorry enough. That they're like, I'm right. Hey, we're doing this because I said so. And I think we were really quick to say, you know what? I'm sorry. We kind of messed up there.
Yeah.
You know what, son? I probably, on second thought, I wish I wouldn't have said that to you. And I hope you'll forgive me.
Yeah.
I think it's okay to be humble. Kids are honestly very forgiving if they see a humble heart.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm glad you brought that up, Drew, because I think one of the things I would say about you guys as I watch your own children choose to come to our church and choose to raise their own kids in our church and Landon to be on staff with you, their faith is real. It's not something you forced on them and then they spun out. and your other amazing son. I love him too. I think all of your kids are amazing people. And I look to y'all as someone that's, quote, in ministry to go like, how can I make them priority and not make the ministry or the church everything so that they feel like they're second class? What I love about you two is y'all live it out. That's what I would say. If y'all could talk the talk, y'all know all the scriptures to say, but you live it in a way that rubs off on people. So I see what y'all do in the community. I've been the recipient of it. Drew, you called me the morning of Ron's surgery at like 4 a.m. and said, can I come with you to the hospital? And I turned you down. And I was like, oh, it's no big deal. It'd be laparoscopic. Then I'm crying in the waiting room floor 4 hours later, like, I should have said yes to Drew. But that's
You should have, because I went back to bed. I mean, that's fine. I can pray in bed too, you know.
But that's who you are. And that stuff, I think, sticks with kids to go like, were we at church and did we put the cute outfit on? Or like when our neighbor is hurting, how do we respond? Right. Were we generous with our money? Did we show up for our friends and live out what Jesus tells us to do? So thank you guys for doing that.
Before we leave this point about failing, Courtney, I would just say this, that just to remind everybody that, man, we live in the most distracted time in human history, I believe. It is a very, very difficult world to be consistent spiritually in. There are so many distractions.
Distraction is an epidemic.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's, I believe it's the enemy's number one weapon, distraction. And of course, our world is dominated by screens. And screens, listen, I think screens are like anything else. It's like water and fire, right? We need water to live, but we can drown. We need fire to keep us warm, but we can get burnt. Screens are not good or bad. It just depends on how we use them. We're using them right now. We're being able to talk to people that we would never be able to communicate with because of a screen.
Yeah.
Also, they can be super distracting for
sure.
And so,
hey, will you send me that graphic? He put up a graphic that showed over the years and it like moved through in real time, a chart that basically said like what was the priority, right? Was it like friends, family, church? Online was nothing in the 60s. And then it moved through and it took over as number one. So I'd love to share that with them because I think it's eye-opening to see that it is moving above friends and family and church, which was always the top of all of our grandparents and our parents. It was like all of a sudden, it snuck in there. So will you send that to me?
You mean right this second?
No. After we're done.
Okay, good. You scared me.
Yes. He's like, yes, ma'am. Hopefully.
I'm biologically slow. So, but yeah, I will definitely do that. And the significant thing there is just how it's disrupted community. You know, we spend so much time alone now.
Yeah.
And the average person is more isolated, and isolation is no bueno. It's not,
no bueno. I serve on Wednesdays. I'm like touting my horn, but I've learned more on Wednesday nights about high schoolers than I ever thought was imaginable because I've been with them for 4 years. And it's just like you can read something on TikTok or social media. I'm like, oh, kids are struggling with depression. And then you sit with one that is like, I think I'm going to take my life tonight. And your world has changed. And so I am just so glad that I don't know who twisted my arm, but somebody got me involved. And I'm so glad. I'm sure I was pouting about the time commitment. And now I'm like, oh, my word. I've learned way more in 4 years just being there and at y'all's at the church with the kids. So thank you so much.
Powerful.
All right, Drew, last one. Fall in love with the process, not the outcome. Or Michelle, you can obviously weigh in anytime. But last one. So start small. Don't give up. Plan for failure. And the last way we're going to grow consistency is that we fall in love with the process and not just the outcome. What does that mean?
It's so important because it is possible to be too goal oriented. And, you know, we're speaking to parents right now, and some of them, they're amazing parents, but they should probably honestly ratchet back the goals in their, that's a good way to say it, but they should, because
Well, I think a goal audit would probably be a good way to say it. Is like, what are my goals for my kids? And then really looking at them and going, okay, should this be the top priority?
Give me an example. So you feel like they're unreasonable, like my kid's going to be an Olympian, my kid's going to be a pastor, whatever the thing is.
And maybe they are. And I think that's great. But all of those things are, it may or may not happen. So therefore, that's an issue. But then
I just think sometimes we exhaust our kids with, the goals, athletic goals, academic goals. And again, I'm goal oriented. I'm result oriented. But I have to admit that sometimes we exasperate our kids. We have to remember the pace that they're keeping up is so much different than the pace that we had when we were kids. And so I think they can get exhausted And that's when burnout happens. And so I just think we have to remember what's most important. And sometimes I think we get a little too worried and fixated on the outcome, and we forget to enjoy the process.
That's right. That's right.
Enjoy family life and enjoy our kids. Just enjoy them.
That's right.
Amazing human beings. But we're so fixated on making them incredible adults that we forget, miss the ride and miss the journey of how special and how amazing their hearts are right now.
I love that. And I think you're talking to an audience that's like, oh my gosh, I get this because my desires are good. Like say in the spiritual life, you'll say, I want my kid to know, love, and follow Jesus. Awesome. But we can be so hovering and forceful about that in their lives that we push them away. And I love in Deuteronomy when it says, talk about it when you walk along the road, but it says impress. And maybe my biblical understanding is off, but it doesn't say press, which to me has always meant like I'm not forcing their faith where it's like a ball that, flips out. It's more of an impression. And so I think, can you speak to that? Because I feel like I watch y'all do that really well to say like the relationship and the communication with my kids and the love that we have together is more important than any sort of quote, spiritual achievement or level that they've achieved in their faith. Is that fair to say?
For sure. And I think even to talk about the verse that you just mentioned, it, says to talk about it when you're walking down the road, when you're doing this. Okay, so now we're not walking down the road most likely, but talk about it when you're in the car, when you're going about your daily life, figure out a way to point Jesus out to them.
That's right.
And that way, then they start to have the eyes to see. Mm-hmm. And so those are easy ways to do that. And, I think you just want to, ultimately our goal is to raise people that are lovely adults and that they love Jesus with all their heart.
Yeah.
So just finding a way to do that is.
Yeah. And just, again, enjoying the journey. And I think that even in spiritual growth, we have to focus on the process, not the outcome. Mm-hmm. To read the Bible in a year and we only get through the New Testament, we got through the New Testament.
Right.
It was a huge win. It's like somebody who makes a goal of losing 25 pounds and they only lose 20. Well, it wasn't a failure. And so enjoy the process. And I think it's just really important that we understand that. I think it's a big part of succeeding in terms of being consistent. I think it's enjoying the process, not just the outcome.
Well, and that's true, Drew, about like reading your Bible. And I've done that too, to go like, I was so zone focused on clicking the checkses on my Bible app that I forgot to actually understand what it was saying. I was like, got it. And you're like, what did it say in Job today? I'm like, no clue. Because I was just like, achieve.
In a box.
And so I think you push for consistency, but then also pay attention to go like, if my goal at the end of the year is to know God better and to understand him better and feel his love better and shine his light brighter, like, is that happening through my Bible reading or am I just like zoned in? Check mark, check mark, check mark. So it applies to all those things.
It does. And like I'm reading the book of Job yesterday, and it's like there's 5 chapters there and it's like, oh my gosh, this is laborsome. And then you get to that moment where he says, though he slay me, yet I will trust him. And you're like, whoa, like I want to be that kind of Christ follower where if I'm having a horrible day, month, week, or year, I can still say, God, I still, in the end, I trust you. I'm going to be where you are. You know, and that one little golden nugget, I was better for it.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, guys. I want to end with one question, but first want to just give you one more thing. It's like the way y'all lead, the way you love, the way you show up in our community is life-changing. And I know I pouted about being away from home. I'm so thankful God put us in your family and your church family for the years that we have been in Texas. So thank you. But my last question for you two is, what do you remember from your parents? Like, as you look back in their spiritual life, and Drew, you shared a little bit about yours, but just as you look back, what were those small consistent things that you're like, gosh, I didn't appreciate it then, but I look back and man, are so thankful?
Well, I think that they got the most out of what they had to work with. I never had a day go by when I didn't feel loved at the end of the day. And I tell young pastors this all the time. If you love your people, they will love you back. Your church. That's why I don't even know if you've ever noticed this or not, Courtney, but at the end of every message, do you remember what I say?
You say, I love you. Yeah.
I say, I love you guys.
Yeah.
And I really mean it. Like I
do
my church. And so I think that's what I would say about my parents is I never went to bed a single night of my life and thought that I wasn't loved.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say the same thing. I mean, I grew up in a house that we went to church every week, and my parents were youth leaders for years, and so we had a lot of high school students in our home, and then they kind of switched to college age. So we'd have kids around, older kids that I just thought was the greatest thing in the world. As this little girl, I looked up to these people and just thought, this is amazing. My grandfather was a pastor for 62 years.
Wow.
So how did I know? I mean, I didn't know. Watching my little grandmother in this small church walk to the church every week with my grandpa and shake everybody's hand as they left, she was modeling for me something that I do now. I don't necessarily stand at the back door, but I'm there and I want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
So, I think those were sweet things that I remember. I mean, every Sunday morning, my dad fixed breakfast. And so it was like we had all these routines. It was like he was going to fix eggs, he was going to fix hash browns, and he was going to do this. But that was our Sunday morning routine. So I remember those things. And I would say the same. I always knew that my parents loved me.
So good.
And that was so important. And one other thing to talk about, just even sometimes the small things.
Mm-hmm.
My dad's mom, my grandparents, they lived real close to us. And so I spent so much time with my grandma.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, 2 summers in a row, she hired me and she paid me like $100 a week to just hang out with her, basically.
Oh my!
And right, but those things mean so much. And what did we do? I mean, at times she taught me how to quilt, and then she might have we'd go work in the garden, and she'd teach me to can green beans.
I love it.
We were painting a fence, or we got to go to the church because we're baking pies today for something.
So the moral of the story is bribe your children so they'll spend time with you.
Y'all, that's a great takeaway. Love it.
But I'm just saying, we didn't do anything fancy.
Yeah.
But she paid me. Yeah. And it was like every lunchtime, then Grandpa would come in from the fields and we'd sit and we'd have lunch together. But those are the sweetest memories for me. Did we go on big vacations? Of course we did. Yeah. But it's those small things that made
I love it.
I love it.
And the sweetest, Drew, I'm going to have you close us in prayer. That one of my favorite things now is Larson is getting to babysit for your grandchildren, which is like, one day she was over there and y'all were gone. And I'm like, can I come over? And she's like, Mom, no. I literally was jealous that I'm just going to come hang out with the grandkids. And I was like, I'll bring the dog.
They do love her. He especially has crushed Larson.
He's amazing. They love Larson. They would like that for every time.
Yeah. Well, Landon the other day was like, what day did she turn 16? I was like, April 7th. He's like, mark us down. We want to be her number one.
Oh, yeah.
We are her premier family. She says no to other people because yes to us. I was like, she's in. She's in. Okay, Drew, will you pray for the mom? And just remember, as they come into your church and my podcast, they want to do it well so bad with all of their hearts. I think they would say, I want my kids to know, love, and follow Jesus. And they get distracted. They get overwhelmed. They get too much information. They get input from their in-laws, or their parents. And so just settle our hearts that God has us and that our desires are right, but we can do this well together.
Yeah, let's do that. Thank you. God, we love you. And Father, we pray that you'd give us the courage in 2025 to make some hard, fast declarations. And one of those is that we just want to grow closer to your son, Jesus. And so whatever that looks like, we can start small. We're going to make mistakes, but we're not hoping for a good year or wanting a good year as much as we're declaring this is going to be the year where we grow much closer to you. And as a result, we're going to grow much closer to our kids, to our spouses, and to our family. And that's our prayer. That's our declaration for 2025. We pray it all in Jesus' name.
Amen. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you if you get back from the frozen tundra situation.
We'll get back at some point.
Okay. See you soon. Okay.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Pardon the Mess. As always, we've got more encouragement and resources over at christianparenting.org. And you can also stay connected with us on social media at Pardon the Mess. And if you like this episode, I'd love for you to do 2 things. Press follow on whatever podcast platform you love, and also be sure to leave a rating so other parents can find us. Remember, you're never alone in this beautiful mess of parenting.